I'm back. Yes, after a hiatus, we have clarity. And in this episode, we are talking about why clarity is the first step in manifesting anything. I'm diving into the esoteric principles that shape clarity so that you can shape your manifestations. And I'm giving you a behind the scenes look as to exactly how I did it over the past 6 months while pregnant and pivoting a massive agency business into something that is much more soul aligned. Stay tuned. Queen, let's talk efficiency. As a Virgo, I live for streamlined systems, and that's exactly why I've used Kajabi to run Crown Yourself since 2017. In fact, in 2022, we took it even further, moving our entire podcast and CRM onto Kajabi because having everything in one place, game changer. No more tech headaches, no more system switching, just one smooth, scalable platform for business growth. And for a limited time, you can get 30 days free to try it out for yourself. Start streamlining your empire today. Click the link below to start your 30-day free trial with Kajabi. Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where together we build your empire and transform your subconscious stories about what's possible for your business, body, and life. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of crownyourself.com, and I'm a master mindset coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, known to my clients as a game changer. Each week, you get the conscious leadership strategies you need to help you reign with courage, clarity, and confidence so that you too can make the income and impact you deserve. Imagine this podcast as your royal invitation to step into your full potential and reign in your divine purpose. Your sovereignty starts here, and your reign is now. Welcome back to the Crown Yourself podcast. I know it has been a minute. It has been a pregnancy. It has been a lot of things that I am so excited to be back here with you on the podcast to dive into all of it, because these past 4-5 months have been an initiation that I've leveraged every tool in my toolbox in order to go through not only pregnancy and creating a new life to bring into this world, but also creating a new model and looking at what were the existing models of business that I was operating in that were no longer working. And it was a deep dive into creativity, into courage, because I had to have the courage to let go of 85% of my team with the Communication Queens agency. And that was so hard because we went through a hard year. We went through a lot together. And I have loved my team and having them be a part of Crown Yourself and Communication Queens and growing it. And I had to look at the podcast, and I started to look at everything as a CEO with such a fine-tooth comb and seeing what was really working for me with my level of capacity. Because to give you a little bit of context, so I started out in April, no, I think it was May. May or June, I started 75 Hard. That was after having a chemical miscarriage. So what that is that it's a very, very, very early miscarriage. And it was a wake-up call back in April. We had our best month ever as an agency with my other business, and simultaneously had that experience. And I was like, this is a wake-up call that my body needed to get into alignment. So I started 75 Hard. I finished 75 Hard at 8 to 10 weeks pregnant. And I was going super strong. And then suddenly, maybe it's because I'm having a baby girl this time. My two boys, the pregnancies were super easy. I was working out consistently 3 to 5 times a week up until 41 weeks. But baby girl has drained me. And I struggled with borderline anemia throughout my pregnancy. as well as coming off of this extreme high in October of the book launch of so many things going right, and then simultaneously looking at our agency business and seeing that so many things were going wrong under the surface. And my bestie, Amanda Kaufman, founder of the Coaches Plaza, you've heard her on the podcast before. She's going to come back on again for an episode about best friends and how to navigate business and life together. But she has this rule, and it's probably my favorite rule that I've ever heard. And she calls it the rule of 20%. And that 20% of what you see online is the highlight reel. And you don't see the 80% that's going on underneath the surface. And that 80% that's going on underneath the surface can be team issues, culture issues, cash flow challenges. And I went to the Dames Funference in October. I was speaking at it, but I also was attending. And I was sitting in this room with 6, 7, and 8-figure business owners struggling with the same problem with their cash flow. And when I looked at it and took a deeper dive into these stages of entrepreneurship, like once you get comfortable in growing a business and generating revenue, that gets very easy. And so you can hit sales milestone numbers, and you see people online, they were always posting their revenue numbers. They're not necessarily posting their profit numbers. They're not necessarily posting their cash flow numbers, which are two very different and much more valuable numbers than your revenue numbers. Revenue, in my opinion, is complete vanity. Profit is sanity. Revenue is queen, cash flow is king. Because if you don't have the cash flow to sustain your team, and if you're wondering week after week, yeah, you're making 30, 40, 50K months, but you're spending 55K, like that's a problem. So being able to understand your numbers, and that was where I looked at a massive realignment of my values, of saying, I have prided myself in being a business owner and a mom and juggling both pretty damn well, with 2 young kids and moving and a lot of life transition over the past 5 years with multiple deaths and handling grief and rebalancing a nervous system and buying a house that also came with, donkeys and goats and a homestead. But at the same time, looking at this call from my daughter, from being in the space of being pregnant and having this portal within me of just a call to slow down, of just a call to say, yeah, I can scale a massive agency model of business, but is that exactly what I want to do? And when I really started looking at the model, I started looking at our customers and clients and satisfaction and what we could do better and what I wanted to do better. And I saw where I fit in, and I was like, I am called to coach and consult. And that's really my calling, especially looking into my human design and astrology. I'm a projector, a 5/1 projector. Like, my job is to guide. And while I will say I do feel called to guide a team to scale a business, I feel like that scalability that I want to achieve will happen more in my 40s rather than where I am now, which is a complete pivot that we did with our agency from having a done for you model into a done with you model, where we come in and we train your team on so that you can be the sovereign leader. Because I had to chunk up and look to the principle of an agency. And when I started to look at the principle of an agency, we were becoming the monkey in the middle. And I was like, that was never the strategy. That was never what I laid out inside of Make Every Podcast Want You. Like, the whole point is that you build relationships with the podcasters, and we were getting in the way. We were that awkward third wheel getting in the way of our clients actually building these quality relationships. And so that, plus the team, plus the cash flow, plus the model, plus everything, looking at all of it and saying, I am going through this with a fine-tooth comb, and we are pausing everything that I don't see a direct correlation to supporting me, my family, this pregnancy, and really making sure that it's stemming from those core life values, not just from this idea of scale, growth, very masculine based idea of that you're constantly scaling, constantly growing, constantly building. I'm like, no, there's seasons. And this season, I'm like, I am so happy to take a step back from that race. In fact, I was having a very good conversation with a friend of mine from the Dames, and she was telling me, she said, yeah, once you get past a certain income threshold, like typically it's over about 250K, like no longer do the bragging rights become like, oh, look how much revenue I've made. Like they can be externally for sure. But more the bragging rights are like, how big is your team? The idea that you need to have this massive megalith of a business in order to and sustain with multiple roles of management and things like that, that it becomes an ego-based trip. And it's one of the things we always have to check with our growth is our growth in alignment with our values? Is our growth serving our highest potential, or is our growth serving our ego? And really being able to have those conversations. Now, that's a long way of saying I came to the decision that until I had complete and total clarity around what I wanted each of the two businesses to be, around what I wanted for each of the two podcasts to be, because producing two podcasts is a lot of work and time and effort and team. And I wanted to make sure that everything we were doing was contributing to the mission and to the bottom line and to the service of our audience, our followers, our clients, our customers. And I took a fine-tooth comb to everything. And I made some really hard decisions. But in doing so, I found so much peace and alignment. And as a projector in human design, the number one predictor, number one tell that I'm in alignment with my strategy and operating in alignment with my human design is success. And as soon as we made the pivot, and as soon as I made the cuts that had to be made, the shift into client results, into client generation, into new forms of revenue, it changed drastically within months. Like it did not take a lot of time to shift. And I'm so happy we made that shift, and success is the clue for me versus frustration, which was what I had been feeling for months up to that point. And I had thought, oh, frustration is just growing pains, but it wasn't. It was my soul basically saying like, you're off course. You're out of alignment with operating as you were designed to do what you were designed to do, which is guide, which is facilitate, which is to lead as the Leo rising with my quirky Virgo sun, where I break everything down into like little nitty gritty spreadsheets and Trello boards and things like that. If you've checked out the resources for Make Every Podcast Want You for the book, you will definitely see that my Virgo came full out in that process. And I'm so proud of that book, and I'm so proud of the success of that book. And again, that marker of success for me as a projector is success. And so seeing the success of the book, seeing the success in the pivot, that was my sign of like, okay, now I'm really in alignment with operating within my strategy. And given that, now I can have the space to create some greater clarity on what is it that I desire to manifest with the podcast. Because clarity is the foundation of manifestation and creation. And in this episode, I want to touch on a few esoteric principles from Hermeticism and ancient wisdom traditions and quantum energetics in order to clarify why clarity is so dang important and why it's one of the tenets of high performance. As a certified high performance coach, it is the first principle that we operate from, is to seek clarity. High performers regularly seek clarity. And if you don't have the clarity yet, then it's okay, but seek it out. When we lack clarity, we have confusion, we have delays, we have misalignment. I didn't realize that for all of those months in 2024 that I was feeling frustration and misalignment, I didn't realize that for all of those months in 2024, when I was lacking clarity, I didn't realize for all those months in 2024 when I was feeling frustration about the business for our agency. And I thought, well, I'm going to focus on the book. Like that was the main focus for me. And I made that choice. And I said, okay, I thought my team could handle our client load and certain things. And there were certain choices that I made that looking back, I would remake as a leader. But clarity is that conductor of energy. And when you lead without clarity, the team gets sporadic results. And so as a leader, you have to take responsibility for that first and foremost. And when you lack internal clarity, it can create misalignment. So I didn't realize that some of that frustration that I was feeling, it wasn't frustration. It was just misalignment with how I actually want to lead. So if the internal vision is unclear, so will be your external results. There's a Hermetic principle of correspondence, and it's as within, so without. As above, so below. I'm sure you've heard that. As within, so without. So if your internal vision is unclear, the external results will also be unclear. And I have a very simple principle that I know if you've been listening to this podcast for a while that I live by is that which is conscious manifests happily. That which is unconscious manifests unhappily. So when I was looking at the unhappy results, I was constantly trying to seek clarity as to why was there this frustration? Why was this challenge with cash flow? Why was this challenge with team? Why was this challenge with management? And I was looking at all of these pieces, but the thing was that what was really missing was that internal vision of actually having clarity around what was scalable and what was for this season of life. And for this season of life, for me, and for the season of life in 2025, now that we are in the Aquarian age, as I look to the Aquarian age, when we shifted and had that shift in November, that was where I got a lot of clarity around the role of agencies. And personally, I'm not going to say this for everybody, but personally, I think more businesses, and this is what I've seen from our clients as well, is that more businesses want to take their teams internal. They don't want to outsource to a third party. They want to have the loyalty, the core values of the team, and have the processes be internal. And for us, what I saw guest podcasting was definitely a core process for lead generation and client retention and client generation that could come, but those processes are typically internal. And so that was my big aha of looking at the vision of where the world and the planet is going in this Aquarian age, and also where my alignment was. So there's multiple areas of alignment to look at. And so if you're feeling like you're struggling and you're stuck or you're frustrated, it's not just you. It may actually be the direction of the planet, the alignment of the stars, our relationship with the stars and the planets, and what those signs are literally trying to tell us in relationship to the challenge that we're facing. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to share with you the fact that my book, Make Every Podcast Want You, How to Become So Radically Interesting You'll Barely Keep From Interviewing Yourself, is now available on Amazon. I'm so honored and excited to have been on this journey with you. This is the book that combines all the NLP communication strategies that we talk about on this podcast, along with podcast guesting strategies, tips, tricks, and how you share your story so that you serve, connect, and sell with your message. This book combines all of that to make you a radically interesting and masterful podcast guest that every podcast will want to have, including the top 1%. So let's get you booked on those top 1% of podcasts when you get your copy of Make Every Podcast Want You, How to Become So Radically Interesting You Will Barely Keep From Interviewing Yourself. Click the link below to buy it now. So the other principle that I really wanted to touch on around clarity is the law of one. And the law of one is the power of unified intention. And so the universe responds to unity. When your mind, when your emotions, when your energy align, that's when manifestation can accelerate. And so that's where clearing out the clutter of making those courageous decisions, this is where courage, the high performance principle of courage, has to come into play. Because some of those decisions, to have that unity, there have to be things of the ego that are stripped away. Like I had to strip away 85% of my team because that was an egoic illusion of success. It wasn't actual true success as defined by me, as in alignment with me, with my mind, with my emotions, with my energy. So if you're in that place of stuck and struggle and you're seeking clarity and they're like, what needs to clear out? So clarity also involves clearing out. What needs to clear out? What are you holding on to or attached to that is some external result or something that you feel you quote unquote should have, but it's just not working? And I think when we look to those shoulds and they're just not working, that's when we can say, okay, there's some things, there's some junk, there's some egoic junk that needs to be cleared out, because that's kind of what the universe is saying to me in order to up level to that next level. And so manifestation always will fail when there is internal division. So a part of you wants success, but another part fears it. A part of you wants, like for me, I was very much divided on scaling an agency model of a company, growing my team, and also growing a child, and looking at, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the mother of 3 under 8. Like those are pivotal times. And I see my son Declan, and he's almost 8 years old. And oh my gosh, he took this picture for Valentine's Day and he gave it to me. And I started crying because I looked at him and I was like, oh my gosh, that's my baby. And he looks like a little boy. He actually looks older in the picture, which is rare for him because generally he looks younger. But I saw the future and I was like, time is so precious. And the idea of having a business that takes away from that time because I'm so focused on management and scaling and all that, that just didn't feel aligned for this season of life and this season of motherhood for me. And I had to become very okay with it. And it was like that was an awareness, especially same with the alignment of putting the money in to investing into growing a business and having that money come from personal capital. So like I said, cash flow and profit is sanity. And sometimes cash flow and profit are sacrificed for scalability because you're like, okay, I'm going to grow to that next level. And so that means hiring more team. That means taking on some new initiatives. That means taking on some new clients, which thus means hiring some more team. And so there's this dance of cash flow and profitability and revenue. So just because we were generating revenue, I was still pouring capital into the business. And when I looked at like, do I want to take personal capital and that could be going to my kids and their savings and the generational wealth initiatives that we have personally as a family, when I looked at that and I said, wow, after a few months, I was like, my business feels like it's robbing my children. That was a huge wake-up call for me that broke my heart, but also was the easiest decision to make and saying, no, this way that we're scaling, there's got to be a better way. And it was actually scaling backward. And that was liberating because as soon as I created that internal harmony, that's when suddenly we saw the shift in tons of consult clients coming in for high ticket packages. It changed the model, and it also changed, and by changing the model to allow for unity, so that we had unity between my internal goals as a mother, my internal goals as a business owner, and having that unity of success so that no longer was my business costing my family. That was a game changer. That is how we literally stopped a hemorrhaging cash flow within 45 days was unity. It was finding the divisions and unifying them, pivoting what needed to be pivoted so that we could have that unity. So if you're stuck and you're noticing that you're having this parts, and in my coaching with my one-on-one clients, we'll do an NLP, what's called a parts integration. And where one part of you, if one part of you wants success, but another part of you fears it, or one part of you wants to be a mom, but the other part wants to be a business owner. And there's some part of you that says that this has to be an either or choice. It doesn't. It can be an and choice. It just you have to look at the principles and the intention of what is the highest intention of both. And if certain processes and models, or the model that your business is currently running in, is not supporting that other side, then that's where you have disunity. That's where you have division. And so that's what gets to change so that you can do both. So that is one of the basic principles of clarity, is making sure that there is that unity with the two. And so in finding that unity, I also had to look at the unity of how each of my businesses, Crown Yourself and Communication Queens, and how each of the podcasts were playing together. And what makes one really more interested in listening to Crown Yourself versus Communication Queens. They're two different podcasts, and I had to really do a deep dive brand evaluation to gain that clarity. Thank you, ChatGPT, for doing a lot of brand assessments based on my questions. And if those questions would be something that would be of value to you, or those ChatGPT prompts, let me know, and I will create a freebie for that. Happy to do that. So let me know if that would be of value for you to help you find more brand clarity. It's one of the tools that I leverage with clients who are struggling in between multiple brands, and they're trying to bring everything into one holistic picture. And honestly, being able to have the access to a technology like AI to be able to do assessments and then filter them through my own lived experience and my own skill sets as a coach, and be able to see, and as a business owner and entrepreneur for 17 years, being able to see differences, variances, and how things can be tweaked, because AI is not perfect. AI is not going to always be correct. And you don't need to just look at the posts of people who use AI and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't need to read that exciting news post because that's what AI said. It said you're creating exciting news. No, that content is not great. But being able to leverage AI to ask questions, to be a brainstorming partner, that was what I did in order to really get differentiation as to what is why two brands? Why two? What are they important? What do they each stand for? What is the vision of each business? And how do they interplay and work with each other? And that was a key core component to finding even greater clarity. Quantum physics confirms that your energy field organizes reality based on frequency. So if you have unclear intentions, then you're sending mixed signals and you're getting inconsistent results. And so inconsistency, when you have inconsistency in results, that means that there are many unclear intentions. And because I was looking at two podcasts and I was looking at two businesses, I had to look at what is the intention of each, but then not only that, what is the intention of both working in conjunction together? And how do they cross-pollinate? How can they co-create magnificent results together, but still remain as separate individuals? It's almost like a marriage, right? Like when you're in a marriage, you're two individuals, but you're under one union. And so it's not only figuring out the union, what is the harmony of the brands and how they combine, but also what is the differentiation that keeps them separate so that some people will be attracted to one and some people will be attracted to another, even though they both stem and come from you. So when I started to really dive into looking at both of the brands and seeing what needed to be purified, what needed to be let go of. And so these are the steps. Like if you want the steps to gaining crystal clear clarity about your brand, about your life, about your alignment, it's really looking at what needs to be purified first and foremost. I had to put both businesses through the fire. Like I said, I took a fine-tooth comb and went through everything from the boring business admin stuff of I don't find profit and cash flow boring. I actually find it very exciting. Believe me, and when you fall in love with profit and cash flow, ooh, it's a game changer. So putting myself through that purification process, looking at how my team was supporting or hindering the growth, clearing out that emotional clutter personally and saying, I'm okay with whatever decision I make, and whatever decision I make will be the right one as long as it's a values aligned decision. That as soon as I put my decisions through my values, basically almost like my values are my board of directors. And when I put them through my personal values of looking at a family and looking at how each business was supporting my family and saw the success or lack thereof in that case, that was a game changer of saying, okay, these are the if this is not working, then what needs to shift? And allowing for that purification, clearing that clutter, clearing it out. And for a while, the podcast was clutter. I had no clarity on what I wanted it to be. I was lacking clarity as to the brand differentiation. I was lacking clarity as to the direction that I want to go with this podcast. And because I lacked clarity on the direction, I just had no vision. It's very hard for a visionary to operate without vision. Like, you can't take action without seeing the vision. And so when I felt the call again, and I got clarity on the vision and what I want Crown Yourself to bring in forth into this world, that changed everything. So next comes the step of precision, because I had to define what exactly I desired. This, you can call it goal setting, you can call it envisioning, but I had to be specific. And I had, you don't have to see everything, but I had to know that this is going somewhere. It's kind of like when you have that conversation in a romantic relationship of where is this going? You can have that conversation multiple times with your business or with any of the projects that you have inside of your business or any of the initiatives that you have inside of your business to say, where exactly is this going? How is this actually contributing to the mission, to the vision of the overall business, to the vision of my life personally as a founder, as an owner, as a CEO? And then getting very clear on okay, is this contributing? Is this not? And if it's not, do you have the courage to cut it? And it goes back to that purification. But once you get that precision, and once you clarify exactly what it is that you desire, and you start to see that vision, you don't have to have every part of the vision mapped out, but you start to see the holistic vision in front of you as far as the trajectory of your business, and you see where this is going, and there is a plan in place to grow it, to have it go someplace. That's when you can move into projection, where you start to act as if it's already done. You start to take those faith-based action steps, those leaps of courage that are not ego-based. Sometimes those steps that a lot of coaches will recommend for businesses, go out and hire someone. I'm not the type of coach to tell you to do that in your business. I will say, yes, delegation is a huge component with growing your business, 100%. And if you're delegating based off of ego and based off of doing things that aren't actually producing results to the bottom line, first and foremost, then you're just delegating ego-based activities versus soul-aligned, mission-driven. And that's where this podcast is going to help you differentiate. That's where this podcast is going to give you tools and resources and different strategies to support you in making those soul-aligned decisions and processes to help you make those soul-aligned decisions so that you are operating sovereignly, not based on the shoulds of what other business coaches and people have told you quote unquote should do in order to grow your business. You have your best way, and I will give you principles first. I will give you processes throughout this podcast, like purification, precision, and projection. And I want to make sure that you have the tools to make your best sovereign decisions, because honestly, that is true alignment. And operating by the shoulds of where everyone else says you should be by the X, Y, and Z date of whatever income range you're aiming for, or where you should be with your team size, or where you should be with delegating, those are all stories and beliefs that are projected onto you, and not necessarily are those the best ones for you to move forward with, unless they are soul aligned. So when you go through this purification process, and then you get really damn precise as far as what you desire, why do you desire it, where is this going, and look at where is this going. As a business owner, you have to look at not only where is this going with the mission, but where is this going for the bottom line? Because in order for your business to actually be a business, you have to be generating income. Like, it has to support your family. It has to support you in your life. If it isn't, then it's a hobby and it's an expensive one. So then once you look through that and you get that clarity and precision, that is when you then can project and start the projects that need to be started in order to build the empire that you desire to build. With all that being said, I am so glad to have clarity being back here with you on the Crown Yourself podcast. If this is your first time tuning in a hot minute, because it's been a minute since we've released a new episode, then definitely say hi, drop us an email, join our Facebook community, Crown Yourself, and jump in and connect with the other empire builders in this community, and say what you loved about this episode. Let me know how this episode served in helping you gain the clarity to take your brand to that next level. As always, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If what you heard resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and start creating a bigger impact now by sharing this with a friend. Just by doing that one simple act of kindness, you are creating a royal ripple to support more people in their sovereignty. And if you're not already following on social media, connect with me everywhere at crownyourself.now for more inspiration. I am so excited to connect with you in the next episode. And in the meantime, go out there and create a body, business, and life that rules. Because today, you crown yourself.